Hey everybody, it's been a long while, but it's finally time to review the Asics Novablast 3. Alright everybody, so let's start with some of the really basic details. A lot of this I'm sure you already know, but it is an 8.9 ounce running shoe with a heel stack height of 31 millimeters and a forefoot stack height of 23 millimeters. That gives you a nice 8 millimeter drop from heel to toe, and overall this shoe is very comfortable with a plush heel collar that feels very soft. Surprisingly plush. I mean, it's not thick when you compare it to some of the other really robust daily trainers that are out there, like Mizuno or some of the other Asics shoes, but it does give you that really plush feeling even though it's still a very light package. This shoe is about 30 grams lighter than the year prior, which is a pretty significant weight cut, especially considering it still maintained that nice cushioned feel in the outsole, still has a lot of material and stack height, still has a lot of plush materials where it matters. So really an overall great update from the version 2 to the version 3 to be able to get that much lighter. Now, there is a Flight Foam Blast Plus midsole, kind of a tongue twister. That's new for this shoe. They're supposed to have this formula be a little bit more bouncy, a little more energetic, and I do feel, again, just like other Novablast shoes, that this is a very energetic and plush outsole. It's soft while still maintaining, again, a lighter profile, able to do just about anything in your rotation, and again, we'll jump into that very soon. There is a very robust heel. It's pretty much impossible to fold this down, really, from like the middle portion here of the back of the shoe all the way to the back. It's just got some plastic in there or some reinforced material. There's also these little rubberized overlays on the outside, again providing a little bit of stability in that heel cup. And they have a brand new tongue design, which is this winged tongue. One of the things that I thought at first was that it was going to be a little bit short. It looked like it was going to have that Nike Vomero issue from a few iterations back where the tongue was so short the laces would dig into your foot, but it actually stretches very nicely as you put it on. It's super comfortable. I don't know if you can see it, but it has two separate sections in each wing of padding, just so that way the lace eyelets don't press into your foot or cause any discomfort or pressure. So that was really well done. And then otherwise, it's very lightweight and just a breathable mesh tongue that is semi-gusseted on the inside. So you can kind of see on the inside of the shoe where it's attached, and the gusset actually wraps around quite a bit underneath your foot as well, which gives you a nice interesting fit, but it just feels like a good lockdown overall. I'm not, feeling any discomfort or anything because of that wraparound gusset, and overall the upper feels very comfortable. There is like some kind of polyester knit upper, not too much details about it other than it is like a 50% recycled polyester, but I like how they did build into the design of the shoe all these different patterns that are actually locations where there's less material and you can see into the shoe just a little bit, giving you a lot of breathability throughout all these areas. All these designs are actually functional splits in the material, so more air can get in and out of the shoe. So that's really neat that they did that. Generally speaking, I'm very happy with the insole. It's not too thin. It's pretty robust. It's not where you're going to get all your comfort from. The midsole really is what's doing that. But at the end of the day, you've seen I've had issues with things like the Hoka Carbon X, Carbon X2, Carbon X3. Very flimsy, cheap insole, and that ruins the experience of the shoe. It just bends and folds up inside under your foot. No issues like that whatsoever with the shoe. It's a great and substantial insole. Now, if we take a quick look at the outsole, it does look like they've reduced some of the grip just a little bit. It's a more flat pattern, not a lot of like grittiness or grooves or anything like that in the outsole rubber. There is a substantial amount of rubber. I'm okay with how much rubber there is because it's still maintained a pretty light weight, and I think this will just go the distance as far as, you know, not wearing through any of the rubber before the midsole, you know, ultimately runs out of life, at least for me. They do still have this shape in the outsole, very familiar to the Novablast 1 and 2. They call it a trampoline shape. It's supposed to help with a little bit of bounce, so that way the shoe can actually collapse a little bit within these grooves, provide a little flexibility, and actually help spring back off the ground and give you a feel of more energy return and give you a little more bounce back on the forefoot. So very cool, very familiar, but still a lot of good updates and just comfortable updates. Most happy about the weight decrease, and also I have to say just off the bat, a very wide forefoot. A lot more stable feeling as someone coming from the Novablast 1 was the last version that I tried. Haven't tried the Novablast 2, but this is 100% a more stable feeling shoe than the Novablast 1. No built-in stability elements or anything like that, but the shape of the outsole, I think, as we're starting to see a lot of shoe companies do this, is just widening a bit to give a stability feel without, you know, really becoming too rigid or actually being a stability shoe. So interesting that we're seeing the companies move in that direction, and that's definitely the case here with the Novablast. Very, very stable underfoot. You really feel yourself planted on the ground, and I think that's great for a lot of people, especially in a really what is a daily trainer. So I think for me that covers everything that I want to say in the video as far as the actual technical details, and now let me jump into, you know, my opinions, thoughts, and feelings on how I'm going to use this shoe going forward. What they've done to this shoe is really maintained a lot of what I personally loved in the Novablast 1. I never really had an issue with the stability in the Novablast 1, but that additional change doesn't necessarily impact the way that this feels as a daily trainer. It just feels more comfortable if you were going into really high mileage situations. I think it's secured itself now as being very capable of going on a 20-mile run. And again, that lightweight, it just feels great on your foot. It doesn't feel like you've got something weighing you down. It doesn't feel extra clunky. They do an amazing job of making a comfortable plush shoe while still being, 8.9 ounces is very, very good for a daily trainer. I'm just feeling in comparison to the Novablast 1, it really is more plush around the heel collar, and I think overall the upper is a more comfortable material. I also do really like the tongue, and again, I think that lockdown and hugging of your foot is just excellent. There's really no complaints about the comfort, lockdown, anything, in true to size for me in the Novablast 3. Now, the other thing that is amazing about this shoe still to this day is the versatility. I would use this shoe if I was tired and wanted to recover. I would use this shoe if I wanted to just get some daily miles. I would use this shoe if I wanted to do a middle distance run. I would use this shoe if I wanted to go on a long distance run. And if I was on a budget, if I didn't have a lot of shoes, I would use this shoe up to around a tempo pace. I probably would want something a little bit different if I was doing track repeats, intervals, something like that. This shoe just can't cover the entire spectrum. There's really not a lot of shoes ever that can cover from, the fastest running to the longest distance running, but it really settles in very nicely as being a shoe capable of going up to tempo paces, but still being good enough and comfortable enough for the long run. Now, I probably will use this shoe for long runs going forward. I actually wish that I had it just a few weeks back, as we were peaking for the Chicago Marathon. That's now only 2 weeks away. I would have really been very comfortable in this shoe, but there were some worldwide shipping delays with Asics, and ultimately their release dates got pushed back. So it would have been a great shoe, I think, for those last 3 or 4 weeks of a marathon training block, doing 20 miles, doing some longer midweek runs. This would have been a great companion for those training days, because it just is that comfort and it provides that soft cushioned feel while not being too clunky that I think really would help me move through the end of a training block and without too much fatigue in my legs. So great shoe overall. Now, if I had to come up with a negative thing to say about this shoe, I will say that the shoe might have some trouble in wet weather. There's 2 reasons I feel that way. One, generally speaking, look at the outsole. You see there's some more traction on the Novablast 1, and again, that traction doesn't really exist on the Novablast 3. So I'm not really sure what they were thinking with the outsole, but there's just a lack of grooves and changes in directions of the pattern. So that might help grip a little bit in wet weather, you know, like it was on the Novablast 1. So I think lack of that, you know, grip might be an issue with the Novablast 3. Haven't really had a chance to run in wet weather yet. The upper also, although nice and plush, does feel like it might absorb a little more water because it's a little more robust and it is that jacquard mesh. So maybe a little bit of a poor choice for a wet weather running shoe. If you're in a really wet environment, this may not be the shoe for you. The last thing I'll say, and this is more of a personal feeling about the shoe, the stability in the width of the outsole, I think it changes the way that the shoe feels just slightly. The Novablast 3 makes me feel like it's leaning a little bit more into that daily trainer category, whereas the slimmed down outsole that some people felt was unstable, I think actually gave it a little bit of a feeling of a quicker shoe. It gave it that feeling of being able to pick up the pace a little bit better because it was a little more nimble and a little more cut down on the outsole, even though it weighed more. So just a personal feeling about the shoe that the extra width makes it feel extra stable and just makes it feel a little bit less like a quick shoe that you'd want to pick up the pace in. It just is the nature of, I think, that wider outsole. So again, not a negative. They're just leaning into that daily trainer category. But if you really liked the way that this felt like it could pick up the pace, it's not impossible in the shoe. I still think it's very capable, but it just feels different, and that feeling feels a little bit less like you want to pick up the pace because of that outsole shape. So that's everything I've got on the Novablast 3. It's kind of a long one, but I like to just put out all my feelings as I go through all the materials and just look at the shoe in front of you and go through everything and think about the runs that I've been on. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you've got some information to help you decide if you want to purchase the Novablast 3 yourself. And we'll be back later this week with some more information on gear as I go into the Chicago Marathon. We're getting very close. I'm going to share my Chicago racing kit, my shoe choice, all that stuff very soon. And obviously we'll continue to run as we taper for the Chicago Marathon in 2022. So thanks everybody. Take care. Hope you had a good run this weekend, and I hope to see you in the next video.